Welcome to the channel, y'all. How y'all doing out there? Listen, so before we start, I just want to clear the air on what this is going to be. This isn't your traditional reaction. This is what I call a case study. There's a lot of great reactors out there, right? And the Catching Bar spot includes all the cultural references and stuff like that. And we'll touch on a few of those things as well. We won't let that just slide past. But the objective here is I want to look at the meaning of the lyrics. You know what I mean? The story behind the story, how the artist builds characters, you know what I'm saying? You know, how people get shaped over time. And I feel like Ren is a perfect person to do this with because of his storytelling ability and just how descriptive he is in his lyrics. So I really want to focus in on the craft, the structure as well, but also the forever evolving impact that Ren has, right? It's just, it never ends with these type of songs. So I felt like this is a perfect place to start. Up next, we'll be moving on to High Ren. That will be the next case study. And if there's any other dope Ren songs that you want me to like really peel back the layers to, put them in the comments below. And don't forget, sign up for the Patreon because I'll be doing a new series. Basically, it's the case study series. And for every 3 songs that I drop, every 3 case studies that I drop, one will go to YouTube for public, and the other 2 will go to the Patreon, and we'll just keep building on from there. And there's a ton of other Ren stuff. So if you're new to the channel, I got a ton of Ren stuff on the Patreon as well. Over 60 reactions. Check them out. Let's get into this one, man. Let's not waste no more time. I gotta put the lyrics up for this. I'm blown right now. Mad genius.
Anger. Have you ever felt anger with nowhere to place it? Vincent felt cold, neglected and jaded, impotent, empathy castrated. Look for the new thing, always look for the new thing, but never look inside, never look within, without, above, below. Same thing. Wait, it gets deeper than that. The insane thing is sane men living in insane terrain, can turn insane brains that are kind of deranged, strange, without the factor of cause and effect. Factually, the man's a casualty of constant neglect. Let's start at the start. Vincent was born in the dark, home birth to a mother painted scars on her arm. Track march from the dragon, China white in the palm. Shooting up the birth canal, Vinny fell out like yarn. Tumbled out, himself unraveling, and that was the theme. Exceptionally average grade, sprayed with low self-esteem. From the fire to the frying pan, painting it green. When it's the cash that rules everything around me. Cream, get the money, funny bin. He weren't ever good at hustling, shitty jobs that he was dead and stocking. Started a combustion, nothing. Pulled him out of debt, the debt collector's rushing to be stripping him of everything. Eventually, there's nothing. The cycle is a cycle for a psychopath on ice. The day repeats, the days are weeks, the weeks are most your life. When the day's done, it's the same one. It's a repeat, it's a rerun. A deja vu religion, a foreboding of a prison. Whole Britain, Great Britain, how Britannia ruled the wave. We started out with intentions and we ended up like slaves. Drink to kill the tension, but the drinks cost your wage. What helps you is what kills you when you're living too deep.
Why skipping like that? I don't like that. Storytelling is impeccable. Let's touch on that a little bit. I'm so glad I pulled the lyrics up because there's no way I was gonna be able to remember all of that. But what helps you, and in the end, what helps you is what kills you, and when you're living to decay. What Ren does in his first verse, honestly, it's something that a lot of writers I feel like are either not patient enough to create, or they just don't have the discipline anymore. It could be a creative thing. I don't know. It could be just like the lack of motivation. But Ren is special in this fashion. Why? Because he builds the person before the moment. I love that. And we're all familiar with the stories, and he's intertwining different stories and stuff like that. But he does. I feel like he doesn't rush to the incident, to the conflict, or the shock either. He really starts with the atmosphere. He builds the atmosphere, the upbringing, the texture, if you know what I mean. Like, just certain words he uses, it really describes the texture of the song. It really puts you in a place of listening. He uses words in a certain way where you know how to sit when you listen. Like, he fixes your posture. He lets you know, hey, this is one you need to pay attention to. We're not just doing story time. We're teaching lessons. We're holding up a mirror. This is his niche when it comes to it, honestly. This is his like forte, I would say, because the quiet conditions that shape someone long before anyone can make a decision is the picture he usually paints. And I really appreciate how he started off this. I didn't even notice the song was this long. Damn. Okay. So we're really gonna have to dig deep in this, but the writing is very deliberate. I like the way I like his verbiage. I like just like where his word placement is. A lot of imagery, around the birth, addiction, and self-harm and stuff like that. And it isn't just, I wouldn't call it, it's not graphic. You know what I'm saying? He's not doing it to be graphic. It's there to establish inheritance at the end of the day, right? So pain isn't introduced as an event or something like that. It's introduced as just as an environment, right? Because he's talking about the atmosphere. And once pain is in the environment, it doesn't feel dramatic to the person living in it, right? It feels normal to them. So I like the way he painted that, because that's the important distinction that Ren is. He understands very well of people, right? Because he lives as the storyteller. He's the narrator and the main character. Don't get fooled by the names in these stories. A lot of it is Ren and a lot of it is me and you, which is why the relatability comes in like that. So lines like the unraveling part, the metaphor, and just being exceptionally average, or that's doing all like the poetic work right there, because he's also a poet, and poetry at its finest is storytelling. So more than anything, I hold Ren as a poet to me, right? Like at the top of the list. He's a great artist. He's a great rapper. He's a great singer. He's a great, just a musician all around, right? He's a jack of all trades, master of all as well. And, we understand all that about him. But my favorite dynamic of Ren is going to have to be his just poetic justice to the world, honestly. And because these things that he's doing, these parallels, they're not punchlines, right? They're not punchlines. This is not a skill based. These are identity statements more so, and that's where we are able to identify with the music. And nobody does that better than him, honestly, because this is like a character who isn't marked by talent, right? Or status or rescue, anything like that, right? You can't put those type of descriptions on him. So he's marked by the hard work, repetition, So by being overlooked, and that, I feel like that matters, because in Ren's larger body of work, for those who are real familiar with it, people don't spiral because they're uniquely broken. That's not the direction he's with. They spiral because nothing ever interrupts the pattern. That's why, so that's something we need to be more familiar with. And then he folds I feel like he really folds the external world like into it. So he's always the money, the debt, the endless working. He talks about that on the money game schemes, right? So this is not unfamiliar territory for Ren, which is what I really appreciate. So it's like survival becoming the full-time job. He's gonna express on that, but that's just the social. That's just like the social commentary of it. But all in all, it's really just decoration, man. It's the craft. You know what I'm saying? This is what he's honing in on. He's showing how, I feel like he's showing how the same neglect, right, that he spoke about earlier in the lyrics, the same neglect that exists at home often continues to like widespread in the system. So it's the way he's doing it is just like with, I guess, cleaner language and, I don't know, just better lighting, right? But I really feel like the whole bedroom scheme too. Like I was trying to figure out why would he name the song Bedroom, but it makes sense though if you think about it, because it already feels like intentional here, right? Because like when you think about it, Ren as an artist, he understands symbolism. It's one of his right. I think we all can agree it's one of his best characteristics, best attributes to his music is the understanding of symbolism and how to paint it in a way where he's not being too obvious, but at the same time he's able to get you to understand the point of the symbolism, not just the symbolism itself. And the bedroom is supposed to be like, like a private place, regulating, and a place where like the outside world shuts up for a minute, right? But like he's painting here, when your life is like built on pressure, the bedroom now doesn't become a place of rest, right? Because you slowed down, you're in your bedroom, you stopped moving. It becomes the place where everything finally catches up to you. And it can actually, the bedroom could be a scary place. It could be a dark place. It could be where all your vices live, the monsters under your bed, the monsters in the closet, the skeletons in the closet. Like there's a lot of things about the bedroom that's safe, and there's a lot of things about the bedroom that's dangerous. So I feel like that contrast is definitely poetic. At this point of the song, I just feel like Ren, there's so much of the song left, but I just feel like Ren is asking you, how can I say it? He's not asking you to judge anyone. He's asking you to understand how someone gets shaped. And that's very empathetic.
And so it goes. Vinny starts to drink to let go. Soon he's drinking, cause when he don't drink, every day is a day on death row. So he drinks so we don't have to think. Mercy tastes bittersweet when the spirit that's inside of him sinks in his teeth. And the months turn over, May to October. More days pissed than the days he spent sober. Skin looks older, demeanor gets colder. Sledgehammer swing to that chip on your shoulder. A cold prison deep in alcoholism. 40% proof, no juice. Inhibition get loose by decision and taboos. When we're living for the booze, who's who he lose himself to? One too many, 1, 2, 3 shots down.
Oh my God, I didn't mean to pause it, but damn, that rhyme scheme was nice. The 1, 2, mic check, 1, 2, and then he goes into after doing the 1, 2, he goes into the 3. But anyways, that's just the skill side of Ren. Let me run it back a little bit. That was amazing. That was very sonically pleasing.
Sledgehammer swing to that chip on your shoulder. A cold prison deep in alcoholism. 40% proof, no juice. Inhibition get loose by decision and taboos. When we're living for the booze, who's who he lose himself to? 1 too many, 1, 2, 3 shots down. Drown those sorrows up in London town. If we in for a penny, we in for a pound. Fate comes full circle. Now it's Vinny boys round.
That's the parallel right there. That's awesome. We'll talk about that later. But I love that. Let me mark that in my brain real quick, because that is Van Gogh painting. That's so dope. So dope. I'm telling you, there's always a story behind a story. Even with the Van Gogh, there's another story behind that story. And we have to give those kind of things credence. Let's look up the lyrics real quick, because I really enjoyed that part. Fate comes full circle. Now it's Vinny boys round. Okay, so that second verse I feel like that's where Ren, it feels like he shifts from like formation to where, you know what I'm saying? Like the verse shows you, it's like going back to the first verse, right? Where he's laying down the foundation of where the person started, how you even get to the spiraling point, right? We can't just overshadow all of that, right? So this one really shows you like what time does to them. The evolution of just time, of the drinking, the dramatic, the loneliness, the bedroom, like all of that concludes how we get to this point. And I feel like the key thing here is that nothing explodes. We don't go from 0 to 100. It erodes. So that's like a slow burn. But months blur together. So the body starts, I feel like, I guess, aging ahead of schedule is what he's trying to get to. The tone gets colder, right? So that's not an exaggeration. That's just like, that's observation. more so, right? And a little bit of poetry as well. So from a writing standpoint, which is what I'm really trying to hone in on, I feel like Ren he's being very intentional, definitely with the pacing here, just the timing, the where he wants to mention certain things so we don't jump ahead. I love that, and he marks time very casually, so May to October, because that's how decline actually feels, right? So if you think about it, nobody announces it, you just look up one day and the chip is on your shoulder. That's not bravado though. You know what I'm saying? Like some like rappers would say in the rap game, right? The chip on the shoulder, they hold it as like a badge of honor or something like that, right? This is actually pressure hardening for how Ren is describing it. So when frustration has nowhere to be productive, right? It has nowhere to go. Pain has nowhere to go. It doesn't just disappear. It's going to sharpen, and it's going to bruise in other places, and it's going to expand. So you got to be careful with things like that. So, but what's important about how the drinking is framed, pay attention, because it's not really, it's not indulgent, right? It's not reckless fun either. It's maintenance, it seems like, right? Which is the most dangerous type. And if you know any alcoholics, or even some who are, dealing with who are sober now and still fighting, because a sober mind will tell you that they're always an addict. So because it's a never ending fight. But yeah, so if you notice, like, just the way he painted it, it's very interesting how he painted it, because the bottle becomes a part of the daily structure, right? So, and it's not to escape. It's to make life in the struggles that you're dealing with, it's to make it tolerable. That's all. They just want to get through the day. You know what I'm saying? They just want to get through the day, get through work, get through dealing with these kids, put the kids down, dealing with infidelity, dealing with, being out of love, dealing with loneliness. It's just to make life tolerable, which is really sad. And it really makes this entire story darker than I expected, honestly. But Ren understands that. He understands that distinction, and that's why he's putting it like that, because as both a poet that he is and a storyteller, you know what I'm saying? He's not writing, he's not writing a fall, right? He's not writing a fall. He's writing a routine that pretty much slowly replaces everything else, so that could be a good or that could be a bad. It depends, you know what I mean? But the addiction characteristics never go away. You got to replace it, you know what I'm saying? And that's the tough part, and that's the uphill battle a lot of sober minds have to deal with, right? So yeah, that final line though, about fate coming full circle and stuff, what I like, it doesn't land like prophecy. It's not like he's never really being preachy or anything like that. It just kind of lands like inevitably, like this is what it has to come to. And in Ren's world, fate isn't mystical either, because this is not new territory for him, right? He speaks about, he has spoken about this kind of stuff in the past. So for him, it's more like mechanical, right? So patterns repeat until something interrupts them, right? Kind of like what we spoke about earlier. So this is something we should take heed to. And most people don't get interruptions, and they get the opposite. They create momentum, which is, could a lot of times lead to overdose or death even, or just making poor decisions and ending up in prison. I mean, there's many different ends to that road. But I feel like by the end of this verse, though, you can feel the circle within the words. You can feel the circle just tightening, right? It's getting more concise now. It's getting more specific, and it's getting less dynamic and more just more tight. I don't know. I just like the way that his words, you can, like, this looks crazy what I'm doing, but his words definitely do create a certain type of texture, because what I mean by that is because you can feel it, right? So you can feel it in your heart. I almost feel it. You can feel it in your hands, right? Sometimes I'm listening to Ren, my palms get sweaty, or they get itchy, or and I don't know. And I think it's because all my focus is somewhere else. Shout out to Ren. He has the same microphone as me on here. Well, I should say I have the same microphone as him. I'm sure he's had it for much longer than me. But yeah, loving this though. Loving this. Let's keep it going. Oh, okay.
Sirens start singing as the screws murder silence. Stand on my Miranda, my right to remain violent. One man's resistance is another man's tyrant. When tyrants make the laws, they go to war with non-compliance. Locked up, Vinny been locked up since his mother knocked up. Kitty grew up fast, too keep this sock, chop, chop. Keep that credit top. Time is money, tick tock. Quantify the price upon your soul and then it's chop shop. Not particularly special, Vinny spent his life a vessel for the musings of the devil. Repetition caused some issues, turned the hide into a jackal. Building pressure in the kettle, bubble up to boiling level. Ooh man, he's a mad lad, falling on the warpath. Vinny split the atom like a Nagasaki bloodbath.
I like to skip it right there, run it back a little bit.
Chop, chop, keep that credit top. Time is money, tick tock. Quantify the price upon your soul and then it's chop shop. Not particularly special, Vinny spent his life a vessel for the musings of the devil. Repetition caused some issues, turned the hide into a jackal. Building pressure in the kettle, bubble up to boiling level. Ooh man, he's a mad lad, falling on the warpath. Vinny split the atom like a Nagasaki bloodbath. Skies are raining black ash, copper car lights flash. Red and blue kaleidoscope, some folks don't like that. Never mind, just a victim of society. The one that serves you alcohol and sells you your sobriety. The one that sells you sex as it pedestals virginity. The one where we elect these lying pests with God ability. 1 to the 2 to the 3 to the 1. Our boy spun his own web-fed tarantulas come like 9 to the 9 to the 9 for his Christ timelines. Intersect, rich as fate was designed. Just set the scene, it's 2019. Richard and a boy named Screech. The hands of fate, they touch and reach. Siblings buried, blood it bleeds. Etched in Richard's memories. Falls a model, troubled sleep. Takes a time of absent leave. Hitting the bottle to soften the blow in the walls of yourself. And there's nowhere to go. And his friends on the force, they don't call, they don't show. Go to therapy, regularly seem to plateau. When his popo went loco and woe so low that his mojo no mono, rebound no yo-yo. And so the time it moved slow-mo. You see the case was never closed, cause the motive was confusing. Orphan killed his sister, but his sister was removed when the mother died in childbirth, but dying womb life brings. The cycle of samsara always was quite amusing. Brother killed his sister, but the records seem to show the brother never met his sister, didn't even know. So the tragedy was a catastrophe, a fate fucked up. Richard's losing sleep while his whole family's talked up.
First of all, those transitions were crazy, dog. And the rhyme schemes he got into, the cream, he had a lot of cool shout outs, a lot of cultural references and stuff like that. But that rhyme scheme was dope. And also, I just want to highlight the beat transitions are so unmatched. Like, and I'm not a big fan of beat transitions, honestly. Like in one like song, I kind of like, I don't know, I like it distracts me from getting into a groove. But being that my mindset is not even thinking about that right now, I'm just trying to look deeper into the lyrics. Those transitions kind of came out of nowhere, and they were just flawless transitions, honestly. And honestly, very listenable. Yeah, a lot of gems too, a lot of gems. Let's see what's going on here. I want to listen to more of it, and I want to give it a proper breakdown at the end. It's gonna be a lot of stuff I forgot already because it's so many words, but I don't want to. I'm just liking the way it's feeling. I don't want to interrupt right now.
The 5 stages of grief is a common psychological model, often used to provide reassurance to all those stricken by loss. For loss comes with a cost like frostbite, shockingly cold, paving the road to decomposure, decomposing your soul.
Okay, that was cool. Denial. Okay, so is he about to go down a list? I just like the way he did that.
The 5 stages of grief is a common psychological model, often used to provide reassurance to all those stricken by loss. For loss comes with a cost like frostbite, shockingly cold, paving the road to decomposure, decomposing your soul. 1. Denial, pretending for a while, reality retired, but everything is changing. Richie lost the will to smile, how to reconcile when murdering a child. The 2nd stage is anger, feel it bubbling the bile. Anger damn the man that served the hand that wrote the plan. If God is will that's good and grand, then damn we are all a damn forsaken by creation. Revelations Richard cannot stand. The 3rd stage is bargaining, begging God for second chance. Lord, I know it is a reach, but I'm begging on my knees. Resurrect the boy James, resurrect the boy Screech. I'll devote my life to thee, I will live a life of peace. Stage 4 is depression, that's a lesson taught in grief. Depression, demonic like possession, that feeds upon this spark for life. No water is refreshing, no sunlight brings him warmth, no sleep will ever bring rest in. His guilt and doubt are oh so loud, the silence sounds so deafening. Depression, the numbing of expression, the negative obsession, ruminating in oppression. Stressing is a lesson when your mind begins reflecting. That's stage number 5. 5 is acceptance.
That boy Richard getting ready for work. Hey, look, this does remind me of NF in a way where, first of all, they do not describe these emotions in the same way. They're completely two different artists. But what I do appreciate about both of them is how descriptive they are. But not only that, I just love how they continue to excel. Like, That Fear by NF was the best NF I've heard in a while. I feel like he stepped his game up. I feel like he's gotten better. The same with Ren. Like, his storytelling is just getting better. And I understand, like, being on a hiatus for a little bit, trying to get strong again, dealing with everything he's dealing with. But it's just amazing how his brain is still active and works at this level where he can actually put together these type of songs, or stories, I should say, right? Awesome. I just want to point that out. And I feel like Ren isn't like, he's not picking sides. He's exposing the tension, which he's known to do. I respect the way he comes, you know what I'm saying? And I also respect, as a writer, how precise the language gets, you know what I'm saying? The Miranda flip was pretty cool, just because, like, you know, it's like a US thing. So it's like the fact that he knows about everything, it just blows my mind how he can just make a casual reference like that. People here don't even know what the Miranda rights are, you know what I'm saying? So that flip, and it isn't just clever, you know, for the sake of being clever either, you know, it's deliberate though. So even that has credence to what he's talking about. So it shows how the same system that I guess promises protection can also feel like a threat. I mean, like, what are we going through today, right? A lot of people, depending on what side you stand on, you may relate and agree fully with this, right? So order and violence now start to share the same vocabulary. And I feel like when he talks about being locked up long before any cell, that's Ren pointing at something I feel like deeper than like incarceration, like the physical cell. It's more like mental. It's like some people grow up already boxed in, right? Well, they feel like they're boxed in, you know, by either poverty, addiction, or even by expectation, just having that burden on you or having that expectation on your shoulders. That's that chip on your shoulder he might have mentioned earlier. And the law, it feels like the law just becomes the place where all the pressure finally surfaces. Dangerous. But this is really where Ren's writing, well, I would say part of Ren's writing that separates craft and commentary, right? When it gets somewhat personal, you get to kind of see Ren's view on politics and, you know, the government control and stuff like that. You get to see where his mind is skewed on what parts, you know what I'm saying? And he's not yelling, you know, he's not preaching either, but he is showing you how systems don't need to be evil to be crushing, right? They just need to be indifferent. That's all. And that's what keeps the people opposed, right? So, because I mean, face it, we're in a world where like that's just what, you know, either you're going to be a revolutionary or you're going to be a part of the revolutionary movement, or you're going to further the plans of the government. It's like that, right? It's like that. That's like the way the world, that's the way it feels like anyways, right? So, and Ren's pen feels almost revolutionary. I feel like that's the perspective he's coming from. That's like the decision, the weight he chose to carry. It forces you to sit with the uncomfortable truth that outcomes don't come from like nowhere. You know, they come from pressure applied long enough. And I'll talk about that. Those five, what do you call them? 5 stages of grief or something like that. That was really deep. I like that. I just want to hear what the rest of this is.
Souls get shaken up. The road's never quite ideal.
How tall is this dude? Ren just that, because that guy playing Richard looks hella tall, and it looks like Ren might be either his height or maybe even a little taller. And yeah, Ren's tall as hell. Can anybody tell me how tall this freaking Amazon is? I'm 6'1", 6'1.5". He looks clearly taller than me though.
Souls get shaken up. The road's never quite ideal. But slow rise, dust it off. And let me tell you something, Richie, man, I'm proud. Cause you pulled a stitch from the seam, the wound was open weeping. Felt like a regression, but that flesh was set for healing. You wrestled imperfections, misdirections, what with demons. Most demons are a fallen angel, truth has double meanings. Perspective disconnects the trauma turns to lessons. The biggest curse you'll ever face could be your greatest blessing. Remember, in the darkest times, no need for second guessing.
This is too easy for him, dog. This is just too easy for him. He's just dropping gems nonstop. There's too much to appreciate here.
We're sat for healing. You wrestled imperfections, misdirections, what with demons. Most demons are a fallen angel, truth has double meanings. Perspective disconnects the trauma, trauma turns to lessons. The biggest curse you'll ever face could be your greatest blessing. Remember, in the darkest times, no need for second guessing. No path is ever linear, a stumble leads to stepping. You're a soldier, a scholar of life's sorrow, and day follows day. There will always be tomorrow when it gets colder. Whatever, it's only weather. Rain feeds the crops, let them grow, think clever. I'm so fucking proud of you, Richie, my boy. I know you're itchy, my boy, to get to work and deploy. Serve and protect my don, in for the right reason. I know you think you've done wrong, but look at who you become. It's your first day at work, big man. Hold that head up high, my friend. Come on. We're all proud of you, Richie. I hope you get out there and smash it. I mean, what could go wrong?
Is there more? Am I bugging? Is he not just getting better as time goes? Ren is getting better. Ren is getting better, bro. He's getting better. It's just somebody who really cares about the craft. Let's wrap this thing up. I lost the lyrics. Where are the lyrics at? He really did it justice, man. He really. I like that he slowed. First of all, I love that therapy scene. That scene was fire. I love the things he was talking about in there. Also, the ending, slowing it down for us. Bringing in the sonics, the singing. I mean, it was so well balanced. This entire song, it was so well balanced. This is some of my favorite. This is definitely, this is definitely up there. This is definitely up there as far as like even with Jenny, Screech, and Violet. I think this series is better than those, actually. To be honest with you, just because he's gotten so much better, I think he got more descriptive. I think his pen game is, dare I say it, I think it's way better. Honestly, I think it's way better. But he named Screech in here, right? When he's I guess he's referring to, he's like inside of Richard's head, I guess. And like, but that wasn't like just a callback for nostalgia for the fans or anything like that. I mean, that's conscience, right? In the room now, right? It's entering the room. And because you follow these tales, right? You already know that the Screech, who Screech represents, you know, Screech isn't just a character. We all know this, right? And he's more so the collision point where, I guess, neglect, he spoke about a lot in here, violence, and I guess just desperation finally just spills outward, though. And when that name shows up in that room, right, it reframes, I personally, I feel like it reframes everything we just heard, you know, because it's the first time you hear the name. So it isn't this isn't an isolated song or an isolated story. You know, it's part of the chain. You know, Jenny's absence, her absence is felt without being restated, honestly, because Jenny doesn't need to be described again, right? Because the weight is already there. It already exists in this song, right? And even Violet, right? The mom. So Violet, as the origin point, sits in the background of all of this, right? And Violet's not, you know, not as a villain, but just as proof that pain doesn't start where it ends, right? It starts earlier. It gets handed down. This is like that foundation we was talking about in the first verse. Like, this is where we have to pay attention to so that we can have a better understanding to why he's even telling these stories, right? It's not really to be like there's a Jenny out there, Screech out there, or Richard out. It's really, I don't think it's about that. I think he's trying to teach you or teach us how to analyze and how to be more empathetic with human beings because of why, and the proof is in how imperfect we are. That's loud to me. That's like very loud to me. And honestly, what's powerful is that Ren doesn't use this moment to explain the lore or nothing like that, right? He doesn't get descriptive or nothing like that. As far as like the stories, he trusts you. He trusts the listener. He trusts us. That he trusts his own poetry. He trusts his own art, right? And that's why the little grief sequence really works, because it's not academic, right? It's not academic. It's like a mind trying to just survive something that just can't be undone at the end of the day. So even naming the stages isn't about being clever or anything like that. It's just about giving shape to chaos, which is wild. Sounds a little like impossible, but when you can name something, you can carry it without it swallowing you whole. You know what I'm saying? I like that. And this is really where the officer, the perspective comes into focus too. Like when he steps into when the wife comes out and stuff like that, and he starts singing. I really like the way it sounded too, by the way. But Richard isn't really framed as like, a hero. He's framed as a bearer, right? He's a bearer, someone who just steps into the aftermath and has to just live with what happens next. Like that's kind of how he paints Richard, which is really funny because that final encouragement when he's like save and protect first day at work. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't sound, Ren's tone doesn't sound triumphant. It sounds just heavy. It sounds like, I don't know, like choosing purpose after damage, not before it, because we know a lot of damage is gonna be done. So really dope. So, but from honestly, as a writer myself, from artist to artist, I feel like this is where Ren's own fingerprints are. They're just impossible to ignore, man. They're just impossible to ignore because Ren has never hidden that his work is shaped by illness, right? Isolation, and just long stretches of being trapped inside his own body. That's why I like the bedroom theme. Really, I feel like connects with Ren. All of it really connects with Ren, and I feel like Ren is using all these characters, all these stories, because he's trying to come up with more ways to describe really how he's doing and who he feels like, what he feels like doing at times, and like the struggles he deals with. He's finding new ways to redescribe his own life story, and some of us don't even realize it. We think he's just being very creative and telling stories. And, this is influenced by, a story of someone that was in the paper in Brighton. And like, I get all that. And I think that's all fuel for his own story. And it's not selfish at all. I'm not saying he's doing it because, oh, poor me. No, he's doing it because he doesn't want poor me. He's doing it because he wants to still use his music as that therapeutic vessel. But at the same time, he doesn't want poor me. So he doesn't put the attention on himself. He doesn't make himself the main character. He creates these other names, these other characters, and we empathize for these characters because he makes them so real. And because they're so real, why they feel so real to us, because they are real. They're Ren. They could be you too. They could be me at times, but for sure, they're Ren. You feel me? They're Ren. And like I feel like that's what the bedroom scheme is about, through that lens anyways. It really just starts to feel like less fictional space and more like a familiar one, actually. You know what I'm saying? Less made up and more real life, the place where the world goes, the bedroom, where everybody goes quiet, right? And everything you've avoided finally speaks. It catches up to you. It catches up to you in your bedroom, in your safe haven, right? Go figure. That's why the Van Gogh parallel is, it's decorative and it's foundational to Ren's story, honestly. That's why even the Van Gogh, like even using that, he's just using it as a vessel. Vincent Van Gogh, he painted his bedroom as a place of calm, while his mind was anything but calm. You know what I mean? So Ren writes. Vince painted bedroom. Ren writes bedroom. The same way, the same way, as space that should, I guess, offer peace, but instead becomes, I don't know, containers for suffering and creation at the same time. Wow. And that's the real parallel, I feel like. Ultimately, that's the real parallel. Not that Ren is these characters, right? Not that he is these characters, but that he understands them. Because when you're an artist who's like lived through pain and illness and isolation, you don't write from the outside looking in anymore. You become almost incapable of that, and that's a blessing. You begin to write from recognition, right? Memorabilia, like you from knowing what it feels like to sit with something long enough that it either destroys you or turns into art. If you're blessed enough to have that skill. Some of us aren't blessed enough to have that skill. And Ren is put here as an outlet for those to connect to because he speaks for them. This is why Ren's work to me just resonates globally. You know what I'm saying? Not because it's dark, but because it's honest. He doesn't exploit pain like a lot of people do with mental health and all this other stuff, right? He doesn't exploit pain. He translates it. That's a skill in its own. But he takes what I guess he takes what breaks people quietly, and he gives it language, structure, and meaning. He helps people explain or resonate or just not feel alone. You know, that's not songwriting. That's poetry with great responsibility, because he understands his impact. So there's a lot of responsibility behind that. Sorry, just a lot of things going on in my head. He doesn't write stories to shock you. He writes them to make sure that none of this pain that me, you, and the rest of the world might resonate with. He writes to make sure the pain is not invisible.
Locked up, Vinny been locked up since his mother knocked up. Kitty grew up fast, pulled his socks up, chop chop. Keep that credit top. Time is money, tick tock. Quantify.